Mr. President, Ray McGovern is here to brief you.
Yeah, Ray. No. You're not going to turn this into a bad news thing. This thing with Syria, we defeated the terrorists and we defeated Putin and everything. But what does I hear? These guys that are now in power, they're Democrats, right? They're going to help the Kurds and bring freedom, right? Don't tell me because I'm hearing something about their Al Qaeda. What?
Well, Mr. President, the good news is that the Israelis are the big winners here. They and the Turks, they had this hybrid march into Damascus, which went with an unaccustomed speed, and they are clearly the winners. It's going to be very hard to resupply Hezbollah in southern Lebanon now through Syria, or from air, or from the sea. So Israel is feeling pretty good. I guess the downside of that is that the genocide will no doubt continue now even more because they feel free to do.
Genocide in Syria?
No, the genocide in Gaza.
No, we don't call it that.
Yeah.
Why do you keep doing that, Ray? What,
Well, I'm just quoting the UN. Yeah.
yeah, but we don't pay attention to you anymore. Listen, Ray, come on. I only got a couple of 5 weeks or something left or whatever. This is good news, isn't it? I mean, Israel, they're now going to control what part of Syria and with the Turks.
Well, Mr. President, as I say, it's good for Israel and for those who support Israel. Now, it's bad for Iran for obvious reasons. They don't have the kind of access to Hezbollah in southern Lebanon anymore. The Houthis are still very fresh and very active. But it's bad for the Russians too because they're taking it on the chin. They supported Bashar al-Assad, and now he ran away. Actually, that's pretty much what happened. So it doesn't look good for the Russians. But the Russians, for their part, they know when to hold them and when to fold them, and they folded them. They didn't want to get involved in trying to defend or reinstate a fellow who ran away, whose army just crumbled. So it's bad for the Russians, but not as bad as it is for the Iranians. Now, with respect to your real question here, who is this fellow Jolani or Al Jolani? They all seem to have the first name of Al. Huh? I make a joke. Jolani was in U.S. prisons in Iraq. That didn't enamor him to the U.S. As a matter of fact, he's considered a pretty bad terrorist, so much so that the Department of State has a $10 million reward out for his apprehension. Here's the
We
Department
still
of
do.
State.
We still got it now.
Well, maybe Tony
That don't
Blinken.
look too good. That doesn't look good at all.
You're right, Mr. President.
What the hell?
Last I
So
checked,
can't we get that thing dropped? I mean, he's a
well,
freedom fighter now, right? He's a Democrat. He's a good guy, right?
Well, we're trying to put a lot of lipstick on that pig, and CNN and others are doing as good a job as they can. But let me just read you a little bit from the State Department's website, which lists rewards for justice. About Jolani, reward up to $10 million for information on this fellow. Okay? He was a leader of all the attacks back in April of 2015, kidnapped a lot of people. April 13, he pledged allegiance to Al Qaeda, okay, and its leader, Zawahiri. On May 16th, 2013, the Department of State designated him as a, quote, specially designated global terrorist pursuant to Executive Order 13224. Lastly, as a result of this designation, all these people are blocked, and you better go get them because you get $10 million for it. Well, now I have to tell you, Mr. President, that's on the record, and as soon as I get out of here, I'll make sure that my colleagues at the Department of State realize that they have to take that off their website, right?
It's
But that's
still on the bloody website.
the last time I checked, it was 10 minutes ago. Yeah.
Yeah. How did they screw up like that? Don't they know he's now a Democrat?
Well,
Right? I
I'm
don't
gonna
know.
say a
How
little bit
does that
more.
happen, Ray? How the hell does that happen? That could tarnish our victory there. But Netanyahu doesn't mind. He likes these Al Qaeda guys now.
Well, to the degree they cause chaos in Syria, Mr. President, as I've told you lots of times, that is what Israel has been aiming for years and years and years. As a matter of fact, they admitted that 11 years ago when they told the New York Times bureau chief in Jerusalem, look, our preferred outcome in Syria is no outcome. We'd like to see and Sunni be at each other's throats, and if they hemorrhage to death, well, Israel has nothing to fear from Syria. Now that's in spades now, given what's happened. So I will get back to state and get them to get that off their website. It's quite well. What I've already said about the $10 million reward out there, where we're simultaneously pledging millions of dollars to support this same fellow. I hope they don't give any of that $1 million before he's taken himself off. Enough on
What's
that.
his name then? What's his name?
Al-Jolani.
Al-Jilani, and he
he's
was
got
with
about
Al
10
Qaeda, but then he broke with them because he's no longer
Well,
a
he broke with
terrorist.
them, and then he went to a subsidiary called Al-Nusra, and now he's been welcomed in Damascus in an unusually felicitous way. Now, I talked about lipstick on a pig. Here's the Kumbaya version of Al-Jolani. He said, "Look, we're not ISIS. Whatever we are, we're not ISIS. Christian churches can just operate as they always did. Christmas, you can have Christmas trees. Women, they can wear whatever they want. We're not ISIS, okay?" The Bishop of Aleppo supports this because he said services will continue for Christmas. Assad's prime minister is cooperating with the transition. So, this is the good news, or I'd say this is the lipstick. One never knows how long Al-Jolani will want to or permit his head choppers to do their thing. And he's been personally associated with chopping off heads. So that's just kind of a reminder of what kind of people we're dealing with here. There's a lot of lipstick going around on CNN and other places, and Al-Jolani is surprising everyone by not chopping heads off just yet. But that's what I mean. It's just yet. Mr.
What
President,
about all those Alawites or whatever you call them that they used to like Assad? They still around?
Well, they're still around. They have very, very fortified presence there, out where the Russians still have their air base and their naval repair facility. That will be a sticky wicket. No doubt the Russians would like to stay there. I wouldn't give them much chance under Al-Jolani, but who knows? He's acting in very strange ways, and otherwise he's acting to demonstrate right now that he's not ISIS. Okay, we are not ISIS.
Yeah, but also I got one malcontent like you here in my CIA or other briefing. Can't even remember what agency he's with, but he says this looks like something the Russians might have helped massage. That they don't get the bloodbaths, and they get to keep their base, or didn't he say something about they can stay or what have you?
I haven't heard anything yet about that, anything authoritative, Mr. President. Again, I'd be surprised if they were able to hang on there. They're not going to give them up freely, but my guess is they'll be shoved out of there. It'll be a loss. Let the key that naval thing has been very, very helpful to them in the Mediterranean, and the air base, of course, has been very helpful. So we'll have to see about that. But the Russians have taken it on the chin when they saw, as I said before, when they saw Bashar al-Assad kind of running away and his army not up to anything. The Russians knew when to fold them. And they folded them. They gave him asylum, or whatever it is, political refuge now.
Yeah.
With his family, nice young family, but his regime is over after 50 years. So what's to come is really not known. I'd like to, Mr. President, since you hadn't been informed about Al-Jolani being on the rewards, $10 million rewards list, there may be other things that Tony Blinken prepared for you to say, as you did 3 hours ago in the Roosevelt Room. If you have time, I'd like to just take you through some of those things just to clarify, so that you know what the real case is, and you know what the Tony Blinken rhetoric is. Would you be willing to do that?
Do I have a choice? How long am I going to be here? Just don't bum me out too much. This is a big
Okay.
victory. I mean, here's Trump coming in. He's going to let Israel do whatever they want anyway, and he's going to get the credit for that. And Israel's going to just run wild there, right? I mean, they're going to take over the whole bloody place. What are all the other people? Egypt, Saudi Arabia. What are they going to do about it? Iraq, weren't they close to Iran?
Yeah, this is not going to be real easy for Israel to do. They still have their eyes set on a broader Israel, but they'll have all they can do to finish up what they're doing in Gaza and exterminating the rest of the Palestinians there. Mr. President, just to remind you, 200,000 Palestinians have been killed in Gaza since October 7th of last year,
Where you
probably
get
more.
these numbers from? I keep asking my people, and they give me much smaller. They said 40,000 or so
Well,
forth.
that's why I have direct access to, Mr. President. We filter the intelligence in a way that tries to come up with the truth. And whereas the Gaza, the Hamas officials that count bodies, okay, they come up with about 50,000, but that's just because they have their IDs on and they can count them. There are another 50,000 under the rubble, and God knows how many others have died of, get it now, starvation. So, a reputable medical journal out there in London says that there are about 200, well, they said 187,000. That was half a year ago.
That's
Now
that
it's over
Lancet thing.
that's the Lancet, yeah. So
Yeah.
if you say there are 2 million Gazans and you got 200,000 dead, well, that's the beginning of ethnic cleansing, if you don't want to call it that other word. Let me just interject here, Mr. President, for your own background. A lot of people feel really strong about, I was going to say the word, ethnic cleansing, okay? And I'm one of those. And just as a personal way, I'm remembering a poem written by Thomas Merton way back during Vietnam when we were bombing the
There
hell
you
out of
go
the.
with one of your Catholic teachers from Fordham, right? He's one
Well,
of them
Thomas Merton,
Jesuits.
yeah, he was a Catholic, but he was also very much involved in criticizing the policy in Vietnam. And he wrote a little poem. It's sort of an anti-poem. It has this commandant of a Nazi death camp going about his daily routines, and then he pauses and he looks in the camera and he says the following quote: "Do not think yourselves better, because you burn up friends and enemies with long range missiles without ever seeing what you have done." Period. End quote. So now Merton could have today added, so that you starve people together, without seeing what you have done. But of course, even the Nazis did not make a practice of starving people together. That's a digression, but I had to say it. Now, let me get back to what Blinken gave you to say at the Roosevelt Room there just 3 hours ago. Just so you know what was rhetoric and what was exaggerated, for your own background, and in case you go before the press again, here it is. Okay, the whole thing about managing the risks, okay, that was your big point, that this has happened in Syria now, and we have to manage the risks. Now, Mr. President, my colleagues, experts on the Middle East, tell me, Ray, please tell the President we are not able to manage the risks, okay? And they referred me back to something that John Kerry said when he was Secretary of State. He worked with Sergei Lavrov, the Russian foreign minister, for 11 months to do a ceasefire in Syria, and then it was blown apart by the U.S. Air Force. He came back 2 years late, 2 days later, and I saw him at the Atlantic Council. and he was all kind of disheveled, and he's unlike John Kerry. And I just want to just tell you what he said here, if I can find it. I can't find it, but I have it pretty much memorized. He said, "Look," he said, "I've never seen anything in my entire political career so complicated as what I've been dealing with. There's Al Qaeda, there's Al Nusra, there's Iran, there's Turkey, and there's Syria, and there's Shia and Sunni and all that. It was just very difficult for me to align all these forces. That's that's the mistake, Mr. President. The U.S. can't align forces the way that we used to do when we had when we first had the first coup, when the CIA's first coup was, guess where? In Syria. Okay, we can't do that anymore. So that was just the first point I wanted to make. What was the second one here? Oh yeah, you say that Russia is weaker today. I know that that's the party line. It's dead wrong. Russia is much more powerful today, not only in the strategic aspect with this new Oreshnik missile, but they're just about to take over as much territory as they want to take over in Ukraine. So to say that Russia is weaker today, that's good rhetoric. It's not reality. Hezbollah is on its back. True. You got that right. Tony Blinken can now say Hezbollah is on its back because it can't get resupplied through Syria anymore. Okay. Oh, Iran's own military capabilities have been weakened. Mr. President, just for your background, this is the first time in history that Iran has been able to attack Israel with impunity. When I say impunity, I mean with hypersonic missiles that cannot be shot down. So you might say, or you might in rhetoric,
They got those same missiles the Russians got.
no, well, as far as I know, they don't have the Oreshnik. That's the late. That's still in testing stage, although it seems to work. But they have hypersonic missiles. I don't know how they got them. Probably via Russia or perhaps China. But they have them, and they've demonstrated them. And
So
they've
why can't they be
demonstrated.
shut down? What the hell is it? What? We got
It's a
all these
simple answer.
defenses. Yeah.
Simple answer. They go too damn fast. Okay, Mach 10, Mach 11, Mach 12. Iron Dome, Patriot, none of these missiles can contend with that, particularly when there are several of them. And as I say,
Haven't
Iran,
we shot any of them down? I keep seeing that we're shooting things down.
never a hypersonic missile, and that's pretty much the bottom line there.
How many of those they got?
Well, we don't know, but they've mass produced them. So they've been using them in Ukraine regularly. It looks like they have a relatively, well, an unlimited supply for their needs. With the Oreshnik, that's a little different. They're just going into mass production now. But as you probably, I hope you've been told, they've said that by the end of next year, they'll be able to give Oreshnik missiles to Belarus. So if we put intermediate nuclear missiles in Germany, as we've promised to do in the later half of next year, the Russians are saying we'll do the same thing. So you have this awful arms race, which was nipped in the bud by that intermediate range nuclear forces treaty, which Trump got out of in 2019. It would be just terrific if people would deal with the Russians and say, okay, it's to nobody's advantage that we have these intermediate range nuclear missiles. Let's get rid of them. That's what happened, of course, when Reagan started talking with Gorbachev and found out that he was the real deal. Let me just continue here. There's a few other things. Oh, yeah. Okay. We carried out comprehensive sanction program against Bashar al-Assad and all those of his associates. Well, that's correct. Did that work? Yes. Did that hurt? It sure as hell did. And it gave opportunity for the generals in receipt of a lot of this Gulf money to divert it to their own personal uses, and the Syrian people suffered. Some of them starved to death. What's the next thing here? Okay. I talked about the rewards for justice. It's interesting, Mr. President. I have a lot of friends. Some of them are Christian Zionists, and this is anecdotal, but one of them said to me, this Jolani reminds me of Saul uh, falling to the ground on the road to Damascus, you know, and being converted from a head chopper to a very decent fellow who's now dealing with the previous Assad government. Wow, what a transformation! He says. Well, I'm a little from Missouri on that one. Show me over the next couple of months that they're not chopping off any heads anymore. The other thing he said was, they said the voice said to Saul, 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 don't you're not Saul anymore. You're not persecuting Christians or anybody else. You're Paul. And so, hey, did Jolani hear? Well, you're not Al Nusra anymore. You're not Al Qaeda anymore. You're certainly not ISIS anymore. You're what do they call it? HTS, whatever that stands for. Okay, so the names change. Whether this is a beneficial or a nice version of Al Qaeda or Al Nusra, it's too early to tell, Mr. President. But let's get them off the terrorist list and the reward list, and let's wait before we give them millions and millions and millions more. That would be my suggestion. Okay, what else?
No, we're gonna
As
we're gonna wait. No, we got a different line on this.
well, it's
This
just that,
is we gave Israel the support it needed to finish the job, and they're finishing the job. They're more secure than ever. They now got one of their main enemies knocked out. Right? They're going to kill off Hezbollah, so they'll control Lebanon. They'll control the part of Syria by their border, and they'll finish off all the Palestinians. Right? And so that you may not like that. You may think that's pretty rough stuff, but it's going to be hard for Trump to say he made it. He had the wisdom and courage to do something. He's not. He came on too late. And this is Netanyahu doing me, the United States, a favor. He gave us victory here, right?
well, Mr. President, with all due respect, this victory may be short-lived. What I'm saying here is that the rest of the world now considers Israel a pariah. Okay, this will have take time to work out, but you have the Houthis shooting up ships in the Red Sea, and you've got the power to reduce Israel to a very, very isolated country, supported only by us and the UK and a few other countries. So, yeah, the short term, Netanyahu has won one. It's going to be hard to resupply Hezbollah. However, if he thinks that this improves his situation vis-a-vis Iran, he's dead wrong. And we need to try to make sure he knows that and remembers that if he gets into open war with Iran, he cannot expect us to come in with both feet, because I dare say, particularly in these next 6 weeks, he might expect you to do that. And in my view, or in our view, that would be something that would be a really tough decision for you to make, whether you would go out with guns blazing in support of a fellow like Netanyahu. I don't know what Trump will do, but I'm thinking about your next 6 weeks. I don't know if you'd want that to happen.
No, we already had the victory, and finished, and we don't have to do anything more. But Trump, we one upped him. We one upped him, right? And we saved Israel, and and so we lost some voters in Michigan, some Arab Muslim voters. So anyway, I'm not running anymore again. So small price to pay. Democrats came through for Israel. That's what we care about. And you get that Sheldon Adelson's wife. She gives him hundreds of millions of dollars. What she got to show for it? We already done it. You know what, Ray? You don't get. I never was a peacenik. Joe Biden was never a peace maker. Joe Biden was never, one of these lefties in the Democratic Party, one of these so-called progressives. That wasn't me. I'm the guy from Scranton. I'm the guy from Scranton, and we don't take prisoners, and we go winners, and Israel's the winner. And you know what? Power does make right. Power makes right. You see, that's what the progressives and those people in Congress. There's only a handful of them now. They keep babbling. They think morality. In morality, who's the winner? And we kicked ass now in Syria, and it's the same we did in Libya. And we're doing in Lebanon. We're taking over. Israel's, you call them our surrogate state, whatever you want to call them. They're going to control the whole Mideast. And everybody else got to play ball, right? And we're going to look good. History's going to judge us as having backed the winner. That's all history cares about, backing a winner, right?
Well, the,
I
the
mean,
longer,
I've been vice president, I've been president. I know how many shitty things we do in the world. I know that. But the fact is, all people remembers, are you a winner? And now Netanyahu, he didn't intend it. Maybe he saved my ass, right? He saved my ass. He showed that we're winners. And Trump, what's he going to come and do? He'll be, he'll give Putin, save Putin. He won't do shit there. And it's too late now for him to bail out Netanyahu. Netanyahu, we gave him the equipment, we gave him the weapons, we saved Israel, right? That's the storyline. Nobody's going to remember any other story, you know?
well, Mr.
And
President,
that's what's called your legacy, see? Legacy's got nothing to do with truth. I learned that in Scranton. Kid Scranton, they don't give a shit about truth, even though the church says don't do this or don't do that. So what? You
well,
still
Mr.
do it
President,
or
the
don't do
world
it.
at large looks
Doesn't
quite
matter.
different.
The question is
Israel
who's
is
the
riding
winner.
high this year. Next year, who knows? The world is split between the West plus Israel and the vast majority of the world, which is comprised of people of color. The BRICS are coming to the fore. It's a matter of years. You won't have to worry about it, certainly not as president. But over the longer term, the trajectory is for the power to evolve east. And unless we make our peace with this process, unless we start talking to people like the Russians and talking respectfully to people like the Chinese, it's gonna result in a bifurcation that will be lamentable because you don't want to have a world divided between people primarily of color and people primarily lily white like you and me. I mean, that's just makes common sense. So we're not going to be able to prevail very much longer, and Israel isn't either. So that's the legacy that will be in the history books 50 years from now. Your immediate legacy, well, you can crow, or you could say, "Hey, look, we gave those mercenaries or those rebels, those moderate rebels in Syria, the wherewithal to depose Bashar al-Assad." But it all depends on what now, Mr. President. Will they be chopping off heads, or will they keep this lipstick on the pig and allow this kind of a very disparate and tolerant
What
atmosphere?
happens to those other guys, the Kurds? I never could figure that out. They're the ones they're like us, right? They're Democrats, right?
Well,
They
there are
and
Kurds.
but the Turkey, they hate them, right? They got them all Kurds. They got in Turkey and everything, fighting them all the time and all that, right?
That's
So
right. Well, they
what's going to happen now? I mean, Turkey didn't back these Al Qaeda guys, as you put it, in Syria, right? Turkey, they want to crush that whole Kurdish deal, right?
They do, and we, of course, have supported the Kurds. So this is the mix here. You have Kurds in Turkey, Kurds in Syria, Kurds in Iraq, Kurds in Iran. The ones in Turkey are a real danger to the regime. Besides that, there are 5 million Syrian refugees in Turkey. Erdogan wants to get rid of them. What's going to happen now? He's going to try to get rid of them. What's going to happen to them? Well, a lot of them are not going to survive repatriation, so to speak. But that's one of the problems that Erdogan has, as he sees it. And this is the fly in the ointment as far as Turkey is concerned. And they are a prime mover behind what just happened over the last week in Syria.
You think he told the Russians in advance? There was something about they offered a peace thing 3 weeks ago, and Assad turned them down. I mean, the
Well,
Russians knew all this was happening. That's how they were able to get the guy out and all that, right?
yeah, it was clear that Bashar al-Assad was not long for this world, but no one knew it would happen so quickly. In other words, no one knew that his army would just surrender and that there would be a clear path on that road to Damascus, right? Uh, so they had warned Bashar al-Assad, look, let us help you rebuild your army. He said, no, thanks, no, I'm fine, I'm fine. And the others, the Iranians had done the same thing. They, no, I'm good. I don't know what went through Bashar al-Assad's mind, but he was completely unprepared for what happened. And it seems that most countries didn't, even the MI6 in the UK, a former chief confessed that nobody knew anything about what was going to happen. Well, there were certain intelligence operatives that probably knew, but the word didn't get around. It was one of these total surprises that doesn't happen more than once in a generation, I would suggest. So the aftermath is what we have to deal with. And what we need to know is that Jolani is well known to us. He was in our prisons, okay? He has a certain attitude toward us. For the nonce, he is being very respectful and letting the Christians do what they want and letting the women wear whatever they want. But how long that's going to last, I don't know, because he's one of these real fervent jihadists that really believes that they ought to do away with other peoples, other religions. And he's shown that in the past. That's why he's on our rewards list for $10 million. And I'll see to it that he gets off that if that's what you direct me to do.
All right. So, but let's just focus on the positive now, right? This takes away Israel as Trump's issue. We saved Israel, and now we can go attack Trump if he tries to cozy up to Putin. If he tries to, he says he doesn't want any more wars. How do you run America without wars? How the hell do you do that? Again, I may not be some brilliant New York intellectual or something like that. Maybe I'm just a kid from Scranton, but I know you gotta make war. That's what our economy runs on. I've seen it all my life, and you can't justify keep making equipment if you don't use it. You got to have a war, and then the war makes you a hero. That's the whole deal here, and we got it now. Right? We got it. That's what I said in that Rose Garden. We backed Netanyahu, and he made this a better, safer, freer, more democratic world. So that's great.
Well,
Right?
Mr.
Don't
President,
cheat me of that, Ray. Don't cheat me of that. I've known you for 27 years. I can't get that number. You're a real old guy, and they say I'm too old to be president. You're real old. But, I don't know. You can't, why are you always ruining every party?
well,
Why,
Mr.
right? Why are
President,
you raining on the parade, for God's sake? It's a good thing. It's a great thing, right?
well,
And they say a
because
lot of people die. A lot of people die all the time. Car accidents, whatever. Flooding. I don't know. They
well,
say we're
Mr.
starving these people in Gaza. I'm not starving them. We tried to do something. We couldn't do it. So now that's the end, Yeah. Yeah, there's no Palestine after this. Unless you know different.
Well, we do know different, Mr. President. The people in northern part of Gaza are starving. The ones in southern Gaza are being obliterated by bombing. The bombs
Well,
that
that's what I mean. So Israel's going to win.
well, if that's called winning,
Well, it's always called winning. Your winning is
well,
when you kill more of the other people than they kill you. Let's cut
but
to the
over the
chase.
long,
What the hell? You think Harry Truman? We all like Harry Truman, but how many kids did he kill? Everybody says we're killing kids in Gaza.
yeah,
Yeah, you bomb
well,
in the daytime, you're going to get a lot of them. Even if you bomb at night, well, we
yeah.
dropped those bombs in Hiroshima, Nagasaki, right? We did that, and we did it in the daytime, and we killed hundreds of thousands of them. What do you think? There weren't children there. They were going to school. We knew they were going to school. I've read these things. Harry Truman said, "Yeah, got to do it when it really shocks him." You know, so they
Mr.
did.
Pre-
They did it in the daytime. So
you,
that's what's happening now. You
you
know,
realize, Mr. President, that our military, General Eisenhower, General MacArthur, Admiral Leahy,
yeah,
all the big, they were all against dropping those nuclear weapons, those atom bombs, because they were not necessary. The war had been won. The Japanese were ready to surrender. All they wanted was not for us to hang their emperor up
yeah. I
on
don't
a
want to go
lamppost.
into that old history.
Okay,
I'm just saying, you know, power is what makes you successful.
okay. Well, let me
If I
just
had
say,
done this earlier, everything, then Trump would not be coming in as president. When we could have sent him to jail, that's what we are going to do. Send him to jail. All those, what has he got, 45 felonies or everything. Now it's all, it just eats me up. This guy's now a big hero. He's Mr. America. What do I got? I got nothing. And I could have done better than Harris. No. Sure, I should have. No, you got to have a woman. You got to have a black woman. She wasn't even black. She was half Indian or whatever. But no, they got to have that. A white guy from Scranton, he's no good, right? White guy from Scranton. Well, I was in touch with the American people. If they had let me run, I could have beat them, you know. Uh, you think the CIA staged that hit job on him to just blow off part of his ear, and then he looks like a hero, and then you think that was the October surprise, huh?
I
A
don't know
so-called
exactly
assassination,
what you're, oh, the assassination.
yeah,
I don't
Of
know.
Trump. Then that was too convenient for that to happen. It must have been some of your old buddies there at the CIA, but
Well, Mr. President,
uh,
if you look at the traditional detective techniques, you have to look at occasion, you have to look at wherewithal, the weapon, and you have to look with who profits, cui bono. Now, the weapon, you can get a weapon for 10 cents, or you easily get a weapon. The opportunity was clear. There was Trump out in the open. Who had the motive to get rid of this guy? Well, it's going to come to reality now, because Trump has appointed Kash Patel to be head of the FBI. Now, the reason I mention him is because he knows where all the bodies are buried, and he has listed 60 of people he calls already chargeable for infractions that he knows about, and he has paper trails to prove it. So, do do people who are going to be on his list, did they have incentive to do this kind of thing? Well, I think so. Can I prove that? Of course not. So he
yeah,
escaped. Now, what's going to happen with his appointees? He's got a new director of national intelligence, if she gets confirmed. He's got a new FBI director. It's going to be hell to pay. And just mark my words, Mr. President, in the next 6, 7 weeks, I would hope that people like Kash Patel are really careful about what they eat and what they drink, and that they try to buy more term life insurance, because they're out to these people are not going to leave uh, non-violently. They have so much stake in this. Even Hillary Clinton does, because the Russiagate path goes all the way back to Jake Sullivan and Hillary Clinton. It was all made up. And Kash Patel worked in the House Intelligence Committee staff. He worked all in the FBI, and he was a prosecutor. If he comes in, there's going to be a rather strange situation where the people that preceded him will be indictable, and if he has his way, they'll be indicted. Now, did they play fast and loose with the law? Of course they did. How did they think they'd get away with it? Because Hillary was bound to win. And people like James Comey wrote that in their book. We did these special things because we knew that our next president would be Hillary Rodham Clinton. So there's going to be hell to pay here. And not only that, but well, yeah, I'll leave it at that because Tulsi Gabbard is being smeared by various and sundry. Whether she'll make it through nomination process, that's another question. But at least there's a sane, there's an educated, there's a discreet voice that might be able to counsel caution to President Trump if he's willing to listen to her.
But she's pro-Israel, right?
Yes, well, she is. Anybody who wants to aspire to any position of power in our government or in our
Yeah,
needs to be pro-Israel. I think that's unfortunate, but that is
yeah. Well, but that's where the action is. Okay, Ray. Uh,
I just have one word on
you,
Ukraine.
yeah, go ahead. Oh, on Ukraine, yeah. What?
Well, it's a good word, Mr. President. You'll remember that we were firing missiles into Russia proper, and that the Russians retaliated with this missile that they call the Oreshnik, which is a new genre of weaponry that goes too fast to be intercepted and does the equivalent damage of a small nuclear weapon. Now, on the 27th of November, just to remind you, Charles Brown, our chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, got a call. Got a call from Gerasimov, his opposite number in Moscow, the Russian chief of staff. Now, what they discussed ostensibly was the Russian plan to do exercises with hypersonic missiles in the Mediterranean. But something curious happened. The way we constructed, and we haven't been informed about exactly what Gerasimov said, but we pieced together that Gerasimov said, please, no more attackums, no more attacks into Russia proper, because we'll have to use the Oreshnik again, and you saw what happened last time in Dnipro. Results? Well, since November 27th, your people have not fired any attackums into Russia. I just want to remind you that the world has gratitude for that, because if that sticks, and that's, I guess, why I remind you, if you make sure that that sticks and that you take and your military takes Gerasimov seriously, we can avoid the spiral into a nuclear war with Russia over the next 6 or 7 weeks, something you have said several times you didn't want World War III.
World War III. You think it's exaggerated?
No, it hasn't been. I think. Well,
I
actually,
think
what I
you
just
get these small weapons, you can use them. Next thing you know, we're used to them. We're used to a lot of stuff. Anyway, I'm getting tired of this. I gotta go take a nap. All right, Ray. I've got a couple more weeks, and then you're out of a job. All right.
Well, thank you, Mr. President.
Yeah, where's that White House intern kid?